Alright, last but not least for Module 4 is illusions. Illusions are super fun because they help us understand perception. So when we talked about agnosias, we talked about the best way to study something is to study when it's broke, and illusions are when perception is inaccurate. So illusions are false or misleading perceptions. And they help scientists study the process of perception. So we're going to get into the vertical horizontal illusion, or as it's better known, the Mueller liar. So we're going to do a couple different types, and they'll have examples of each type. So we can use depth cues, that's the linear perspective stuff, to understand visual illusions or really to trick people. So let me give you some fun examples here. This was at the World's Fair. And it's really a depth cue illusion because we can tell that this is water is flowing down, what's going on, there's no pipe over here, how is it floating in midair? Well, if you turn the water off, you'd realize that the support system is here in the pipe, but that's a depth cue illusion because we're expecting there to be something holding it up in the air. This is a famous sidewalk artist in New York. And he does these really great chalk drawings that look like they go into depth. And then here's another one of a Coca-Cola bottle. And another one which would be made better if this dude wasn't standing here. And it's Julian, I think it's Julian Beaver. So especially if you look down here at his name, it looks like it's standing up. So what he does is he takes artistic principles of linear perspective and some other depth cues to make it look like it's in depth, when really it's like this. It's flat and it's stretched out. So you have to be looking at it from the right direction. So it's sort of how some of those carnival photograph things look when their eyes are following you. And so in that vein, we're going to talk about the gardener dragon. He's super cute. This video is uploaded on Blackboard if you would like to see it yourself right now. We're going to play it on my computer here, hopefully. There he goes. There we go. Oh no, my computer's mad at me. There we go. I don't know what just happened. One second, let's try this again. Get bigger. It's clearly Friday afternoon here. There he goes. And play.
Here's our little dragon, sitting on the window ledge. But look what happens the minute we move. His head twists and turns to follow us as we move around the room. It's all an illusion, of course. He's not really moving at all. It's a version of the hollow face illusion, but it's a very powerful effect. And not just side to side. If we move up and down, again his head cranes to follow us. But our brain has made an assumption about the structure of the dragon's head. And if we move far enough around to the side, we suddenly realize the structure is different. And the illusion fails.
Okay, so that is a depth cue illusion, the hollow face illusion, because we expect faces to come at us in depth and not be backwards. So it's called the gardener dragon. It's a hollow face illusion, which is a misinterpreted depth cue. So we expect faces to come out and not go back. Alright, some color illusions. So to prove to you that on-off, off-on cells work kind of like I tried to describe before, we're going to look at After Effects. So this will help us explain that color processing. So what you want to do is stare at the little white dot in the middle of the screen. I'll give you a couple seconds. So we are tiring out your green, black, and yellow receptors so that when we turn them off, the other half of the receptor, the red, white, and blue ones, ta-da, will pick up the slack. So if you're seeing a flag, great. If you're not, you should go back and try this again on your own. What happened was when we were looking at the green, black, and yellow flag, the neurons of the on-off parts for green, black, and yellow were freaking out. Woohoo! We see these colors. Then when you turn it off, what happens is your brain's sort of like, phew, colors went away, but the off-on cell for that produces a small, like, ooh, yay, colors, as a after effect or sort of a reciprocal process. So that's why you see the little dot when you stare at the light too long. Excuse me. Size and constancy illusions are our expectation that sizes stay the same or things are constant, which is what we ended the last section with. So the Mueller-Lyer is the most famous. We're going to do the Epping House moon illusion and then some depth cue combinations with size constancy. So we can put these together too. So here's the Mueller-Lyer. If you ask people which one looks longer, which line in the middle looks longer, most people pick the one on the right. And in reality, because everyone has seen this in an intro to psych, they're the same length. And so what happens is, with the Mueller-Lyer, is that people interpret the whole picture together. If you think about the whole picture, this one is the longest because of those Gestalt principles. But really we're asking you to look at the components in the picture and they're all the same. So we're sort of tricking you by playing on your Gestalt rules to get you to say that this middle one is the longest. Same idea for the Epping House illusion. If we ask you which middle circle is bigger, sorry this question's unclear, is this, oops. Okay. Alright, is this middle circle bigger? Is this middle circle bigger? People pick this one over here to check. Because in comparison to the dots around it, it is bigger. But they're the same size. Because this is the illusions chapter and you knew that. If you ask people about the moon illusion, does the moon look bigger on the horizon or up in the sky? People say on the horizon. This picture is cheating, it is bigger. But if you think about when people think the moon is largest, they say on the horizon. It's called the moon illusion. Because you have something to compare it against on the horizon. Look at those mountains. Those things are huge. So this moon must be large. Versus up in the night sky, there's nothing to compare it against. Alright, this is a play on the Mueller-Lyer illusion and linear perspective. This one's not the best. Let's do, so it's linear perspective here is the answer. Schwink. This one is better. So linear perspective is that as lines converge in a distance, they're getting further away. The train track isn't getting smaller or that train would crash. So which line is bigger? Well, this back one here crosses the tracks. The front one does not. So the one that crosses the tracks must be larger because that is getting further away and it has to be bigger to cross it. So it's a combination of a depth cue illusion and size constancy effects. But in reality, because we like to cheat, these are the same size. If I could draw straight lines here. A little bit on motion illusions. So we'll get into biological motion. Things that move like people must be people. After effects for motion. My favorite that I love to put on exam is nystagmus. The lilac chaser, which is a color illusion at the same time, and this cool cube rotation demo. It's a biological motion first. Oh no, it's not moving. Oh, there he goes. My picture a little graphic here. I don't know if it'll work. Yeah, it's not working today, but this set of dots up here is moving like a person will walk, so clearly it's a person. So things that move like people must be people or animals. For this one, we're going to talk about after effects in motion. So you're going to stare at the center here again. So we really got to tire your motion detectors out. This one is not as good as the color detector one. So, this picture of the funny man should look like it's sort of wobbling a little bit. Some people see it as coming in and going out. It should look like it's moving a little bit. So what's happening is the same effect in the color after effects. So when we tire out your on-off receptors, the other version, the off-on version, tends to fire as if it's actually seeing something. Alright, nystagmus. This is probably my favorite thing. So this section here in the middle should look like it is moving just a little. So I'm going to make my red lines go away here. So it looks like it's jittering just a touch, right? Yeah? Especially the longer you look at it. And then it also seems to kind of like fade in and out. What is that? Well, nystagmus literally means jitter. And your eyes move just ever so slightly in your head. Very tiny little movements. And I'm not talking about the ones that you control where you're reading something or you're looking back and forth. This is just very slight movements. Why? Well, if you've seen Jurassic Park, and they tell you that if you stand very still, the animal can't see you, that is an evolutionary protection against that problem. So I've mentioned before that the brain does not like to think very hard. So if things were perfectly stationary, you would habituate to them and your brain would ignore them. So tables wouldn't be there anymore until you bumped into them. And so our eyes jitter in our head just a touch to keep things new and interesting so your brain does not ignore stationary things. One cool thing that they can do with this is they can hook you up to an eye detecting machine. So it's kind of like going to the eye doctor where you have to stick your head in this chin rest thing. But they can measure how much your eyes are jittering just slightly and make the picture on the screen do the exact same thing. And people will report that they don't see anything. It's really interesting. So nystagmus, or the slight eye jitter, it's not really an illusion, but this illusion shows you how it works. Alright, so why should our eyes jitter in our head? Because otherwise we'll stop seeing things. Alright, so if you stare at the middle of this one for a while, what should happen is that at some point the pink dots should disappear. So you should see a little green dot as well. That's the color after effect. And then at some point it'll seem like it's moving very smoothly and the pink dots will sort of fade away. So your brain likes to interpret things that look like they're moving as a continuous motion. It's a little bit of the biological motion stuff too. And that's one reason we don't see the jumps between scenes at a certain frame rate. Our brain interprets the spaces between the frames as smooth motion even though it's not. And actually at a certain frame rate too many, it'll make you sick because it's almost too smooth. Your brain doesn't really know what to do. So what this one shows us are After Effects and color processing, right? So the green to red and a motion thing. Alright, some contrast illusions. We've kind of done this. So problems with your edge detectors. If you ask people which one's darker, this one or this one, people will say often that, let's see, it's this one people tend to think is darker because in comparison to the background, but in reality you know that they're the same. So that comparison is very similar to the Epping House illusion where the smaller circles look larger. Same thing here, kind of tricky instructions. Is the letter A darker or is the letter B darker? Not the actual square itself. People pick B. It does look much darker, especially because it's in shadow, but the letters themselves are the same color. So because of that contrast, we pick B. Alright, so some face illusions. So I've got this bean face illusion. Let's see if we can get this inverted faces thing to open. Bop, bop, bop. Right, inverted faces are an example of the hollow face illusion. And so we're going to rotate Margaret Thatcher here. And she should look really creepy. Oh no, because her eyes and her mouth are the wrong way. And then this one, because the face is in the right direction, doesn't look too odd, except for the fact that the whole face is upside down when we get the flip picture here. Now it looks crazy. Okay, so inverted faces are the example of when we switch the eyes and the mouth. Let's go back to this. Bean face one is just for fun, really. Because everything looks so similar, going back to the Gestalt principles, we're going to group all of these things as the same. What you're missing is the little head here in the beans. And so it's an actual face. It's not a magic eye diagram. And so let me make my little circle bigger so I don't actually cover up his face. Here's his face here in the middle. Right. So to give you another example of the inverted faces that we have a little more control over, his eyes and his mouth are the correct direction, so it doesn't tend to bother you too much until you flip it. And now he looks really crazy. Alright, I'm going to end with the Ames illusion. The Ames illusion is almost all of the illusions together at the same time except color. So what happens in an Ames room is we expect the room to be rectangular, right? What they do instead is it's a funhouse room, and the room is actually shaped like terrible trapezoid drawing. So when you're on one end of the room, you're very far from the ceiling. And so you look very tiny because you're in the small end of the room. And if you are on the other end of the room, the Willy Wonka room, you look really large because your head's closer to the ceiling. And we're assuming this over here. But what we're actually getting is this trapezoidal shape. So I have another video for you to show you how an Ames room works. So Ames is all about the rectangularity assumption, which is a depth cue and a linear perspective cue at the same time. Let's see if I can get to the video here. Oh, and my cube demo, I forgot. We'll stick the cube demo here at the end. My fault. See if I can not have trouble here with my players. There it goes. Alright, go. The music in this is terrible, warning. Right, so we're assuming that the room is rectangular, and as we cross the room, we get smaller. So there's a magic shrink ray in the middle. So the guy coming towards us looks much larger because he is in the small end of the room. So the far end of the room is the big end, and the small end of the room is the one closest to us. I don't know what any of this has to do with Quaker Oats, but it's apparently a Quaker Oats commercial. Most of these are built on a slope. This one is apparently built on stairs because you'll see him step up here in a second. But generally they're built on a slope so you don't think that they're stairs. Okay, so super creepy Quaker Oats commercial, but that's how a Ames illusion works. And then my cube demo that I totally forgot. So let's pull this cube one up. Get bigger for me, please. Okay, or not. Alright, well, we'll just hit play and see what happens. Okay. Why do I want to go full screen? 1 second. Ah, there it is. Full screen, please. Ta-da! Alright, so I'll put this video online so that you can watch it a little later. But what you're going to do is watch this rotating cube. Right? Here, let me pause it for just a second. And it's a 3D cube. Okay. I find focusing on the bottom left corner of the cube helps me see this, but what'll happen is that you think you see the cube doing this. So it's literally just rotating on this little Lazy Susan tabletop. And what you can do is if you reverse the way you think the cube looks, so you're looking, it's like that Necker cube facing up, you'll see the cube stop and start to rotate this way over the edge. So here, let me play the video for you. So what you're trying to see is the bottom to become the top is the easiest way to describe it. All right. That usually sometimes takes people a couple tries to see, so I'll put that video online for you so you can look at it later. That is a motion illusion. I just forgot to show it in the motion notes. So be sure that you get in this section how the illusions are tied to the depth cues that we talked about in the last section.